It's the morning star drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
Hey guys, how is it going? And welcome to the Morning Star Drive on 117.8. It is Thursday, June 27th, and so happy for you joining us. We are ready to start another day together with the Lord. So subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on SoundCloud, and make sure to support us on Patreon. So today we have an exciting podcast for you. We have Sermons in the Sky with Pastor David Baker, the QNA Thursday word study, and of course commentaries, updates, and news on what is happening around the world in this history today. Whew. All right, everyone, how are you doing? Yes, it is Thursday. I am so happy. I hope you guys had a wonderful and awesome Wednesday service last night. Today is Q&A Thursday, but remember, we have it every single week, so get those questions ready. Send it to me whenever you can. And if you haven't yet, for today's video, leave a like and comment to build our community. I'm just very happy and thankful for everyone joining us every weekday on the Morning Star Drive, so let's get up and support each other each and every day. So this week's Sunday message title, two titles. It is, God has been giving us everything He needed to give us at each time and fulfilling all the will. And the second title, you will connect only if you know. You will open your eyes only if you take action. All right? So, it is Thursday, which means I am recording this on Wednesday, and I just did the Rebel Pastor podcast. You know, we're doing it every single, what is it? It's Wednesday morning and Tuesday evening. Right? So I am going over this. It's been about 4 months just to see what the growth is like doing this on the live. And, probably within the next I'd say probably over one more month, we'll be able to get a better idea if this live thing actually works or not. And if not, we just do it in a different way. But, we got to try it and test it out first. And I think that's the most important part. And I think that's something that we have to recognize and realize also for the different things that we do in Providence also is sometimes you just got to try it. And not just try it, meaning do it for 1 week or two. We got to try it for a couple months, like 4, 5, 6 months. Just check it out, work out all the different details, because sometimes when you try something new, you're kind of tweaking it as you go, right? You're tweaking it as you go, like, oh, okay, this works. Oh, this doesn't work. And as you're doing it, you realize that you get better and better, and there'll come a point where you've made it at a certain level where it should be doing something different, right? So I think that as we're doing this, these YouTube premieres and stuff, we're going to try it out for now. Try it out for maybe another month or so and see how it actually turns out. And then in the end, it's better to either change it back to like a regular video itself and not do a premiere. Although I do like the premieres because of the chatting we have with each other. But we'll see what happens. So we are growing. And, I think it's something where we want to see where we can get the maximum growth, especially in the beginning, building an audience. And we are growing about 130 to 150 new subscribers every single month. So that is also a very, very good sign. And I hope it's something that you guys, and I'm thankful actually to all you guys out there that are supporting, commenting, liking, and doing, you guys are just really the fire starters of this internet ministry. And I hope that this channel can be used for a lot of different, it can be used in many different ways so that you guys can evangelize lots of people through this channel. All right? So once again, very grateful, thankful for all of you guys out there for doing such an amazing and awesome job. All right, so here we go. A couple things that I was looking at when I went through the internet, and this one YouTube, is it a YouTube short or either an Instagram reel? It was very interesting. It was about, the question was, what determines how much a child thrives in their life? That's a very, very interesting question. What determines a child to grow up and thrive? Right? And that's a great thing. It's like, yeah, I think people and parents out there, what is the thing that's going to make your children thrive the most? And I was listening to this podcast, and it was just a reel or a short, and the guy said, "Is it having the father in the household?" And they say, "No. Actually, what determines whether the child thrives in their life or not is the overall quality of their mother's happiness." That is interesting, right? And of course, then we have to get into what are the many factors involved in the mother's happiness. Could be anything from their spiritual life to how their relationship is with their husband, to, the different stresses that are going on. There's so many things going on, right? And what determines a child to grow up to thrive? It is the quality of their mother's happiness. And I was thinking about that. I was like, well, that also makes a lot of sense because the mother is the one that usually rears the children and takes care of them the most. They're the closest to them. And imagine if the person taking care of you every single day wasn't happy. That would be a huge influence in your life also. And I think that plays a huge role. So when I looked at it, I was like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense too. That really does. And I'm hoping that we will realize that, yeah, this is something that we have to take into consideration and bring to the next level also. Right? So, yeah, for all you parents out there, especially those who have very newborn babies and such, it's a very interesting statistic that overwhelmingly how much a child thrives in their life is determined by the quality of their mother's happiness. Right? So, husbands out there, make sure you make your wives happy. And the mothers out there, make sure you're not putting yourself into a position where you're over worried, overthinking, and putting yourself in a place where you are actually, affecting the quality of life of your children, right? So I find that pretty cool. And you know what? It's so interesting because I'm talking a lot about the families lately, and I think that's kind of my character. Right? My character is that type of character, which is when I get into something, I really, really get into it. And yesterday I met with a blessed family, like a new blessed family, just newly married and such. And it was a big topic. He's a blessed family and new, and we just had really, really good topics. And we were talking about the blessed families and such. And one of the things that's very interesting is in Providence, and this is quite normal. I'm not saying this is wrong or bad. I'm just saying that we usually focus on the children. The SS and the campus are very, very much focused on, and we make sure that, and they need a lot of care. They need a lot of management, so it's not like it's a bad thing. But yeah, we spend tons of focus on them. And I would say that that's something that is definitely needed. They are the future of the churches too. However, we do also need some really good management for the families too. Right? Because the great part, and I would say one of the great parts about the families is that the families are usually mature. They have wisdom and experience. They don't need the same amount of management like SS and campus. They definitely don't. Of course, career might be a little bit different because they're coming straight out of campus and they're looking forward to something just like that. But usually when you get to the family level, you're going to be a lot more mature. They don't need anyone looking over their shoulders. They just need care. They just need management at a level that will fulfill their needs and help them to reach newer and higher levels, right? And like I said, I'm way more into looking at how families are growing and how families are, what's in their mindset, their psyches. They're raising their children. Not only are they raising their children, but they're also raising their children in providence with expectations. And as I'm thinking about this a lot, I thought to myself is why all of a sudden am I so much into the families and the blessed families and such, right? And I would say part of it is because I'm always with their kids. Because I'm really childish at heart. And I would agree with this that if you are a male and not married, it's not as easy to grow up as quickly as someone who is married and has a child. Like that's completely different, right? Completely different. And I think part of it is because I'm always with their kids. And now that their kids are growing up into their high school ages and campus, I'm having these deeper conversations with the SS and the campus. Now, the second reason I think that I'm really more interested in the families is because I'm getting older. Actually, it's not that I'm getting older. Right now, I'm like the same age as the blessed families right now. Like most of the families that I talk to, we're roughly the same age. And I would say they're probably 2 to 3 times more mature than I am because they have a family, they're taking care of their kids, they have huge responsibilities and stuff like that too. Here, you can look at my life. I'm going out to drink coffee. And that's not really a responsible life because coffee's expensive. You know what I mean? So I'm trying even more to just drink the drip coffee that I have at home at the moment. But I see that I'm around the same age as the families there. I am. And because I'm the same age, we have a lot more things in common. We talk about the same things. We're coming from the same generation. And like most of us are Gen Xers, right? And it's just so much more easier to relate to these other Gen Xers too. And I think that's why I have more interest in the blessed families and families because I'm in that level right now. I'm just there. So I think that's part of the reason why I'm more into it than I should, but that it's just these are all people around my age. I get along with better, and as someone who has always been working with the youth, I'm always that person that's hanging out and chilling with their kids and stuff like that, taking them out, giving the parents a break and stuff like that too. So that is something that I thought was very, very interesting, and I thought is something that I can easily relate to, right? So I think that's the reason why I talk more about the families too. Because we're the same age, we get to talk more deeply about that Shimjung also. Oh, okay. So I told you guys about that one church I went to visit like 2 weeks ago, and they believe in a prophet named Prophet Jerome Fernando, some dude from Sri Lanka. And it's really interesting because when I see these churches, the one thing that really turns me off or gives me super red flags is when money is such a big issue. Like I don't mind when they have sermons about the offerings. Like that's something I think that's quite normal, especially when you go to the bigger churches. But when they do stuff extra on top of that, like for instance, let me give you an example. When I went to that Sunday service that one time for this this pioneering church over here in Malaysia, someone gave a testimony, and their testimony was about money. And people were like, they're really into it. Like they would say things like, "Oh, before I came to Prophet Jerome," so it's not even before I came to Jesus. When I came to Prophet Jerome, I had 0 houses, but now I have 3 houses. So they're like, they're making money. And they're testifying about this, which I don't think is a very, very bad thing. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. They're talking about this. But then they have something every Monday, and guess what it's called? It's called Money Mondays. And for me, it's a little bit like, for me, as like, it's such a touchy subject when it comes to money and church or religious things, right? And it's basically the sons of the prophet, which means the spiritual sons, who became multimillionaires, who did exactly what the prophet told them to do, right? So they do it every Monday, teaching people how to make money the way the prophet wants them to make money, kind of thing. And when I see these types of things, for me, it's just a red flag. These types of things, and when it comes too much, when there is some focus on money too, I think that's what causes a lot of problems. And it's a little bit odd for me to see, because for me, when people say that there's prophets, I don't sit there and say, oh, how can you have a prophet? I don't think that's a bad thing, because Sunseem even before talked about, oh, this person's a real prophet kind of thing, that prophet level, right? And but I do think things have to be done in a very wise way where people are not corrupted, as we've seen happen even in the past in Providence too. People are corrupted by money. And this prophet dude, I checked him in the newspaper. He went to prison for something where he said something bad about Buddha. Not bad. He just said that he talked about Buddha, and then in Sri Lanka, that's against the law. So when I looked at that, I was like, yeah, that's not really a big deal, because I believe in free speech, but if they don't believe in that, that's kind of what their country is. That's what their country's laws are. But the second thing that came up once again was about money, and it said that this prophet Jerome, was being investigated because he has like $40 million that's moving through his accounts. And for me, I'm like, well, I'm not going to say it's a bad thing to be rich, right? And being a man of God and being rich. I don't think that's a bad thing. But I would say it's a red flag because it's very unwise. It's very unwise because he's the leader of the church, and he's just like in his own personal accounts, this much money is flowing around, right? There's always a wise way to do it, a way to do it where people cannot get corrupted by it. There's just so many other wiser ways to do it. You know what I mean? And, all in all, I don't really have anything really bad to say about it, but they're just red flags because there's so much about it is about money. Could he be a prophet? It is possible. That's why I'm not going to say something really bad about it. But does it matter to me? And the answer is not really, because we're in the new history. Whether this guy's a prophet or not, it's not my focus on figuring it out, because the very reason a prophet is here is to lead everyone to Christ, right? And, some would say that prophets are no longer necessary since Jesus is here, but I would say that they can be necessary. There can be prophets still. And their job would be just like this prophet here has thousands and thousands of members around the world. His job would be to lead people to Christ and not to be focusing on him. And I think that would be a big idea: is, are people more focused on the prophet than they are on Jesus? I think that would be something that really has to be looked upon, and that's something that we really, really should, I think that's something that's another red flag is the focus too much on the prophet when Jesus has already come? And how much is he pushing the people towards Jesus, right? So, that's what I found interesting was these Money Mondays. They're inviting me to listen to the Zoom thing. I was kind of interested, but not really, because money's not this huge thing, I got to make money kind of thing, right? So, yeah, it's just red flags and things that I look at that's kind of weird. This thing from the message. I was also talking to this member, this Blessed Family member yesterday. We had a good coffee talk. And we're talking about the message that says, what is grace? And one of the graces God gives is he picks up with a rock and hits it, and hits our heads with it. Now, personally speaking, I'm not sure if that's something that actually happened in prison with Sunseem. Because for me, Sunseem talks about those things like real experiences, right? I'm not sure if that's true or not. And I'm not going to say it's true. But we were talking about, is that something we really need right now in Providence? And it's a question I give to all of you out there is it worth it, in your opinion, that God takes a rock and hits us in the head so that we'll wake up all together in this history? You know what I mean? And we were talking you know what? That would be worth it. If we could get hit in the head and then all of a sudden evangelize thousands, all of a sudden be more confident, being more convicted, and being people that are going to run for this history even better, it would be worth it. We were it would be worth it. Although it would hurt like heck, because we don't know how God would judge us or hit us in the head to grow up. But I'm not sure if God is saying this is going to happen. Or is God saying that is kind of giving us a warning? Do you know what I mean? Because it's not really working out that well at the moment, right? And I think it's something that we have to look at and say, ooh, is this something that we really, really want to do? Or is this, would you say that Providence right now in your country is awake? Not woke, awake. Are we awake in our countries? Are we more focused on the history, or are we more focused on just living our lives the way that we want kind of thing? So I think it's something that we do have to think about. And do we want to reach the point where God has to hit us in the head? Or should we kind of reach that next level? That's the thing that I was thinking about. And, I think it's something where we have to really kind of bring ourselves to that next level. Is it time for us to kind of wake up to what we really should be doing in this history? Because I'll tell you this, guys. When the Americans came, I think I'm not sure if I told you guys this, but I was having a conversation with some American members and leaders and stuff, right? And we're just talking and chatting. And they said something to me that was quite shocking, meaning it kind of woke my eye, it kind of made my heart go, oh, I never thought about that. And what they said to me was like, because what I'm doing right now is I'm in Malaysia. I'm doing internet ministry, stuff like this too. And then, of course, when a lot of people come over, I do tour guide. I do tour guiding and stuff like that also. And they said to me, do you think, they said they find it quite a waste that someone with your wisdom and your experience and your leadership is now a tour guide. And I sat there like, oh man, I never thought about it like that. You know what I mean? I've never thought about. I was like, huh, yeah, that makes so much sense. Here I am, and I'm like a tour guide. That's what of course, I am doing God's work. I am doing internet ministry and stuff. But it's something that's been on my heart too, is what more can I do to help churches? And that's why I was thinking about, I'm going to go on campus. I got to go do this. I got to go do that. I got to, try to find this way or that way to make things work out. Like I was really, really thinking about these things. But talking with a leader from America, I was like, yeah, that's something that kind of like shook me, like that is so true. I got to use my time really well. So far, like internet ministry is working. Like that's something that I'm working on, and that's something that I'm definitely going to be focusing on more and more each and I'm going to be doing. Probably, I would say for the rest of my life. And one thing I did, like I was telling, who was I telling? I was telling this leader, I was like, hey, one thing I realized about the internet that is something that is so powerful is that the internet is the ultimate spiritual passive income tool. And what it means is, I remember I told you guys this before, I have videos of doing the Golden Path lessons, going over the lessons from 2018. And they're still being used today, being shown to newcomers. Think about that. Which means I recorded it once, and it is constantly being used over and over and over and over and over again. And I'm not using any energy. It's just spiritual righteousness being made over and over again, right? Where I'm just like, wow, this is actually still being used. And I think that's the ultimate thing that we have to look at is, the internet is that powerful that all the things that we've recorded and put on the air, it's going to be used forever. People are going to be watching it in the future. People in the past have watched it. People are watching it right now. Like one thing that I find very interesting is when I go into my YouTube channel for the Rebel Pastor. One thing that is super interesting is when I look at like the top 10 videos that are being watched the most right now. This is something that's so interesting to me. Is that when I look at the videos that are being watched right now, the top 10. Some of the videos are from like 2 years ago. Like I look at my top 10, number 10 was Adam and Eve the first human beings, and that is February 18th, 2022, and in the last 48 hours, it's been watched 600 times. Think about that, guys. It's a video I made 2 years ago, and it's watched 600 times in the last 48 hours. 600 times. I have another video from 2022, January. It's been watched 834 times in the last 48 hours. Right? So when I look at this, I'm like, wow, that's quite interesting. That I have these videos up, and they are being watched over and over and over again. Right? And think about that, 2 years ago, and in the last 48 hours, 800 times, 600 times. It is the ultimate passive spiritual income. And I was like, that's something I think that we're going to be using for a long time, and we've got to be thinking about this much more deeply, right? So I looked at this and said, yeah, this is something that we really have to understand more deeply, and we really have to put ourselves into a position where we can really make ourselves and make this history in a new way, especially in this digital age where people are watching things constantly, even from the past. Right? So I hope that is something that all of us can really understand even more, even better, and we'll really get ourselves to understand that, yeah, this is what this history is about, and we have to upgrade and move to the next level. And I was like, technically speaking, isn't this what we kind of want to do when it comes to making money also? And what does that mean? Well, when we make money, And when we work really hard, eventually, what do you want to happen? Well, eventually, you want what? Eventually, you want to be doing less work, right? You want to be doing less work but making more money, because that's what passive income actually is. And I thought to myself yeah, and that's kind of true, that I am doing these video things that are still making spiritual money, spiritual righteousness, and it's freeing me up to do other things that I want to do, right? And it's like I have a couple of options. I can just rest and just go and drink coffee and do whatever I want, or I can use that time and I can double or triple up my money, meaning my spiritual righteousness instead, and start running on campus here, or doing lecturing or lecture training, or doing these other different things like that also. So I was thinking to myself, is like, yeah, this is like the whole point of why we wanted, why we are working so hard. Right? And the spiritual things, that's something that we really have to get our hearts and minds to think about even more clearly. Right? So that's something that I was thinking about too. And I was like, yeah, you know what? I do want to do more spiritual things. I do want to participate in this history, especially when, when Sunseem says things in the message. Remember when Sunseem talks about when we go through like really bad trauma, like bad tribulations? What happens is during these times of tribulations, there's two types of people. There's those that are like traumatized by it and they don't do anything, right? And then there's those that have been through these types of experiences so much and they're comfortable going through it. However, they don't realize the shimjung of the Lord, right? And that's where we don't want to be is we don't want to be here just, coasting through this time of tribulation, but we have to realize the Lord's shimjung and reach that next level. Right? And that's something that I really, really thought to myself, like, yeah, you know what? There's something that I got to do, like next level stuff. What's the next thing that I really, really want to do? Right? So that was something that I really want to talk about also. Last thing before we get into the QNA Thursday or the music break is Sunseem's trial was on Tuesday. So Sunseem did have a trial on Tuesday. I haven't gotten all the information yet, right? More of the detailed information. So I will report about it back on PROVI in the media on Monday. But from all the news that I've heard thus far, because it had to do with Maple's recording, Maple not showing up for the trial when she was supposed to be a witness. She didn't even show up for the trial, and also the audio file. What happened to that audio file with all the forensics that was done by the court and stuff like that too? Okay, so that is something I will report in more detail on Monday. Okay, so let's keep praying. The next trial is going to be on July 25th, so we have some more time to really pray for it. I know that the 70-day prayer condition ends on the 7th, right, which is about a week and a half away, maybe more than about a week and a half away. But we still need to pray because the trial is being extended. So there's another trial on the 25th. So let's really pray and see what happens there. And of course, if it's extended, we're most likely going to see a final decision maybe in August, probably in August or such. Okay. So yeah, that is kind of a little bit of an update of the trial. If you have any questions or anything else, please let me know. And let's move into the first music break of the day.
I was a lost one. I found the right one. I found the right one. Yes, you right now. Yes, you right now. Yeah, we're looking for the lost ones. I was a lost one. I found the right one. I found the right one. Yes, you right now. Yes, you right now. We stay looking for someone to hold when the right one's standing at your door. Open up your heart and say, I believe in what you say, and I promise you will gain much more. Yeah, we're looking for the lost ones. I was a lost one. I found the right one. I found the right one. Yes, you right now. Yes, you right now. Yeah, we're looking for the lost ones. I was a lost one. I found the right one. I found the right one. Yes, you right now. Yes, you right now. 10 years has
struggle, 10 years of pain, but I'll finally get to see you no more. Just calling your name, and the ones who wonder who, just open up your eyes. He's waiting for you too. He's not a man in disguise. And the hardest cross to bear, but your heart's not what I wear. To think this effort and this love could overcome the dirty stairs. And it's all because of you. Yeah, it's all because of you. Said it's all because of you. Yeah, I need you. Looking for someone to hold when the right one's standing at your door. Open up your heart and say, I believe in what you say, and I promise you will gain much more. Yeah, we're looking for the lost ones. I was a lost one. I found the right one. I found the right one. Yes, you right now. Yes, you right now that I need. Yeah, we're looking for the lost ones. I was a lost one. I found the right one. I found the right one. Yes, you right now. Yes, you right now that I need.
All right, so let's get into today's PROVI, not PROVI in the media, QNA Thursday. We do have 2 questions today, and hopefully we can get into these very deeply. So the first question, let's get into it, talks about Ezekiel chapter 18, which is a very popular verse because we do take verses out of this Ezekiel chapter 18 for some of the Bible studies. And one of the things it does talk about in Ezekiel 18 is that it says, the one who sins will die. The son does wickedness, and his son does righteousness. I thought another part of the Bible talks about how the next generation gets punished for the sins, or like hereditary sins. Could you please help make it clear then why the son lives and the father who sins doesn't? Okay? Unless it means the son lives yet receives punishment or judgment. Okay? So, especially when we come to Ezekiel chapter, one second, let me just bring this up so everyone will have a much clearer idea of what these verses are actually saying here, right? So let's get into Ezekiel chapter 18, okay? And there's a couple verses in here that are very interesting. It says, in verse 4, it says, for everyone belongs to me, the parent as well as the child, both alike belong to me. The one who sins is the one who will die. Okay, so there's one of the things it talks about. And then when you get into the more famous ones, it's like in verse 18 or 17, it says, he will not die for his father's sins, he will surely live. But his father will die for his own sin because he practiced extortion, robbed his brother, and did what was wrong among his own people. And then verse 19 says, yet you ask, why does the son not share the guilt of his father? Since the son has done what is just and right and has been careful to keep all my decrees, he will surely live. Verse 20, the one who sins is the one who will die. The child will not share the guilt of the parent, nor will the parent share the guilt of the child. The righteousness of the righteous will be credited to them, and the wickedness of the wicked will be charged against them. But if a wicked person turns away from all the sins they have committed and keeps all my decrees and does what is just and right, that person will surely live. They will not die. And then what does this mean? Okay, so it's a little bit different because what we learn is that there is hereditary sin, there's generational sin that is affecting people that didn't even commit the sin, kind of like the fall. The fall is like the ultimate hereditary sin, and it affects everyone beneath them, okay? So here we are, we're sitting here like, okay, so what does this mean? We have hereditary sin that passes from father to child, and then here it says that you're not going to die for the sins of your parents or whatever it is, right? You die for the sins that you did. And the thing we need to understand here is there are 2 different types of judgments, just as there are many different types of sins. Okay? So what types of judgment are we talking about here? What does it mean that the father will die for his own sin and the son will live? Right? But you're like, oh, but aren't the sins connected? Well, here's the thing. The 2 types of sins or judgment is eternal judgment and temporary judgment, okay? So we know eternal judgment is going to hell, okay? And the second type of judgment is a temporary judgment to fix someone's ways, to make them come back to God, to be punished for the wrong that they have done while they're here on this earth, Okay? So one is eternal and one is temporary. Now, what does it mean that the Father dies for his own sins? That is talking about eternal judgment. Eternal judgment is what? Eternal judgment is people make their own decisions. They live their own lives. They choose to believe in Jesus or not. That is their own choice. If the Son chooses to believe in Jesus and the Father doesn't, the Father will go to hell for his own sin because he chose not to believe. That is eternal. In the end, you do not go to heaven or hell based on what someone else did. You go to heaven or hell depending on what you choose and what you did. Right? That makes sense. So we need to understand as eternal judgment is what this is talking about. It's not talking about the temporary judgment. No one is going to hell because of what someone else did. You're not going to hell because someone else told you something. You're not going to hell because your dad did something wrong, so you're destined to hell. That doesn't happen. Now, generational and hereditary sins are completely different because these are affecting us in our everyday lives, right? So paying for the sins of, let's say, the fall. When we pay for the sins of something like where your parents have committed the fall and they had multiple partners or whatever it is, what does that mean? You pay for that sin in multiple ways. For instance, you pay for that sin because you have a stepfather or two stepmothers or something along that line where you're suffering because you're not receiving the love from your own mom or whatever it is. You receive a punishment or you receive some type of suffering from that because you also struggle with the same thing where, you also have the urges to have multiple partners or this or that, and the way that your parents live is affecting you and influencing you in that way. Yes, your life is harder, but you still have your own choice. You're suffering from that generational hereditary sins, right? And it's affecting your everyday life. And if you don't take care of it, it can lead to eternal judgment. But it is not the direct cause of your eternal judgment. You are just struggling with some things that other people don't. You know what I mean? And the sins of our forefathers will make our lives more difficult. It'll make some sins more easier for us to do as we run this history more and more. And they're going to influence us, but they will not determine our eternal fate, right? Eternal fate is only determined by yourself and no one else. No one can determine that eternal fate. Yes, it can make it harder. Yes, it can influence you in a bad way, but it will not determine. And that's why you have to understand that both of these sins that are affecting us and not affecting us at the same time are dealing with two different types of judgments, right? And it's something like, when I even talk about sins, also, this is one of the verses I always bring up. And it's about the different types of sins, and some sins do not lead to death, which means lead to hell, right? So in 1 John chapter 5, verse 16 through 18, you'll see, or 16 to 17, you'll see the same thing. If you see any brother or sister commit a sin that does not lead to death, you should pray and God will give them life. I refer to those whose sin does not lead to death. There is a sin that leads to death, and I am not saying that you should pray about that. All wrongdoing is sin. And there is sin that does not lead to death, right? So when we look at this, we say, okay, so even when it comes to sin, there are some sins that do not lead to death, right? So that's why I would be, that's why when you look at even sins itself, it's something you look at and say, okay, this makes sense here, right? So that's how I would answer Ezekiel chapter 18. Right? If you have any questions about that, please put in the comments below. If it does answer your question, please put in the comments that it did answer your question. Okay? Second question comes from the comment section in YouTube, and I did talk about this in last week's message about, essentially talking about when people first come to Providence, they may not come for the right reasons. They may not come for the reason, like the ultimate reason, to fulfill the purpose of creation, to become the counterpart of love to God, right? That's the ultimate purpose of creation. And the question is, how did Pastor Sky, how did you switch the mindset to the right reason to fulfill the purpose of creation? What have you done? What did you do to change that mindset? Very good question, okay? So this is something I really need to think about deeply because it was not a conscious switch. I did not have that, I learned the purpose of creation during when I first learned the 30 lessons. I was like, oh my gosh, this is the purpose of creation. I got to switch my reasoning. I never thought that way. it wasn't a conscious thing to switch my mind. Why? Because I was always a Christian. And I think this happens to many people who are even Gentiles that come to Providence is we have our own reasons why we come. Why? Because Sunseam answered a question. Sunseam solved a problem. Or, you prayed and something happened here. Or you come because like I told you that for me, I wanted to have a girlfriend. I wanted to get married to a righteous woman, right? A church-going woman kind of thing when I first came. And even though I came for that reason, it's not that I didn't think about the purpose of creation. I even had that as one of my priorities. The difference was it wasn't really my top priority. Purpose of creation, becoming the love counterpart of God wasn't number one for me, right? And, I'm not thinking to myself like, oh, it's wrong to be married inside this history, because that's not a wrong thing. It just shouldn't be number one, right? That's all it is. I didn't have the wrong mindset. I just had to switch my priorities a little bit. And I think that's why it's not a huge thing in people's minds when they come to Providence for the first 3 years. I still wanted to fulfill the purpose of creation. I still wanted to do it, right? It wasn't something that I was freaking out about. It wasn't something I was saying, oh my gosh, I'm not thinking about the purpose of creation at all. No. I was thinking about the purpose of creation too, right? The only problem was it wasn't number one in my life. So what happened was I came from the former faith and I wanted to run this history, right? Like I'm not going to sit there just chasing girls. I'm just like, no, I got to run for this history. I love God and I love Jesus and I want to run this history. So I ran this history as hard as I could. And I think one thing that really set my heart in the right place is listening to the Word. Because in the Word gives me a lot of different answers that helps me to focus in the right way. For instance, one of the words that really helps me to focus well is when Sunseam said, if you fulfill God's will, then God will fulfill your will. God's will is so big that all your dreams and hopes and wishes are contained in God's will. Which when I listen to that, I'm like, oh, so all I need to do is fulfill what God wants. It's kind of like Matthew chapter 6, verse 33, right? It's seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and then all these things will be added unto you. That is basically the verse where Sunseam says, fulfill God's will, then everything of your will be fulfilled, right? So when I listen to that, it's like, oh, if I really want to get married with the right person, the perfect person that God wants for me, I need to make myself. Just got to raise my level. And when the time comes, the time comes. And that's all I did was, all right, so let me just start raising my level more and more. When the time comes, God will bless me. So I'm not going to focus on it too much because I got to work on myself first. And as I ran this history, what happened is the more I ran, the more I saw the miracles, the more I saw the amazing things that happened, the more I loved this history, the more I loved God. And the more action I took, the more grace I received. And eventually, as I ran this history more and more, my priorities changed over time. Like, I don't even remember exactly when my priorities changed. The only thing I did remember is about 3 to 4 years into this history, I was able to reach a new level of realization of the man of mission and this history. Like, that's something I recognize for sure. And that made me reach a new level to run even harder, running for this history even more. So I would say, it's not something that's so, it's not a conscious decision to, and most people don't really even know that they have the wrong mindset or they don't have the number one priority. But as someone who came from the former faith, loving God was a natural, loving Jesus was a natural, running for this history was kind of natural. I did have my priorities a little bit out of whack because, I came looking for a wife or a girlfriend kind of thing, right? But as time went on, what happens is I'm actually, my mindset is changing as I'm in this history, learning the words, praying, and changing my heart more and more each day. So I would say that would kind of be the way that I changed my mindset. It wasn't conscious. It was just something that happened because as I listened to the word, I received so much grace and inspiration. And I also realized that, in order for me to do well here, I need to do well here kind of thing. All right. So that's where my mindset actually changed. And I hope that's something that really helps you guys out too when it comes to you guys understanding yourselves. And sometimes I think most people in Providence, I say the vast majority, are thinking about the purpose of creation and it's just a matter of changing the priorities around. I think that would be the number one thing. All right? Either way, that is today's Q&A Thursday for these two questions. If you guys have any more questions or anything you want me to expand on, go ahead and leave it in the comments below. All right? So there it is, guys. That's Q&A Thursday. Hope you guys enjoyed that, which means we're going to move into the next segment, which is going to be Sermons in the Sky, and I'm looking forward to this with Pastor David Baker.
You lift me up from falling, I feel your warm embrace, breathing life into my withering spirit, pouring out your love and grace. So I think to myself, I'll repay you. Ooh, oh. You pulled me out of darkness so many thousands of times. You gave me strength and courage, everything that I need in life. Look at all the countless blessings, I'll repay you. Ooh, oh. Even if the world forsakes you and they misunderstand what it means to be in providence, holding God's truth in our hands, we fulfill the greatest history, God's will and highest love. All the wondrous miracles you've shown, only here in Providence. Providence, push forward, we'll run till the end. With our solid faith, we'll repay you with all our heart, will and life. And now the seals are broken, the treasures now revealed. You've shared his highest wisdom, valued secrets of how to live. Looking back at all the memories, I'll repay you. Ooh, oh. Even if the world forsakes you and they misunderstand, what a blessing it is that you're here, acting with God hand in hand. We've received the greatest rapture, we've gained eternal joy. This is God's final history, never will it be destroyed. Providence will shine our brightest light for your dreams. Your word fills the earth. Yeah, we'll preach, gain all that you want to achieve. Even if the world forsakes you and they don't understand, we're more than proud to be here, holding God's truth in our hands. We fulfill the greatest history, God's will and highest love. Your words, your precious providence, we'll cherish it till the end. Providence, we'll stand till the end. Providence, we'll live with our God. Providence, love God with our heart, will and life.
Okay, so let's get into our final segment of today's Thursday podcast. Hope you guys have been enjoying it thus far as much as I had. Right now, I always look forward to this. This is Pastor David Baker, a really good friend of mine, and I hope that you guys will enjoy this with today's Sermons in the Sky.
Hello, this is Pastor David. As always, I hope you are well and close in the Lord's embrace. Recently, Sunsonim has been telling us to remember and to be thankful for the grace we've received. So today, I'm inspired to share 3 incredible ways the Trinity have helped me and my family. The first instance of grace that I want to share today is that God literally saved my life. Just over 1 year ago, last May, I had major surgery. For 7 hours, I was in surgery. Without it, I probably wouldn't be here. Now, I'm healthy. I have a bright future. I can ride my bike 2 hours a day. And I won't go into all the gory details, but this was regarding my prostate. It was an extreme case, so much so that even the surgeons were shocked. Thanks to God, I had the absolute best surgeon in Korea, and I went to Seoul National University Hospital in Bundang. And while I won't say everything's better in Korea, because it's not, the medical system here is flat out amazing. Major surgery, including a 5-day hospital stay, pre- and post-care, all total cost me $2,000 out of pocket. I've had many people tell me since that in the USA, it easily could have been $50,000 to $100,000. So thank you, God, with utmost sincerity for letting me live longer, to be here for my family, and to do more for Sunsonim and for Providence. And in addition to thanking God, I hope this serves as a really good reminder that for all of us, time is short. So let's really strive to make each day count. The second instance of grace is regarding the inspiration I received about my public speaking book. My book, entitled You Can Speak Well, will actually be published on Amazon in 4 days on June 30th. When I first came to Providence, I was 27 years old and I was in grad school to become a high school teacher. I really wanted to teach and share important things with people. But at the same time, I was incredibly shy and self-conscious in front of others. You might wonder why I was that way, and it stems from a couple of really embarrassing situations I had in elementary school when I had to perform or speak in front of a group that went very badly. And so, in Christmas of 1995, I was in Los Angeles for a holiday party. I'd been in Providence for just 1 year, and we were having that night a talent show to glorify God. Our group was about to go on stage. Our skit was up next, and frankly, I was a hot mess. I had sweat dripping down my forehead, my mouth was dry, my hands were shaking, my heart was pounding. I was so nervous. It was just going to be a disaster. And you might think this is strange because you couldn't find a more loving, accepting audience than the Providence family. And it wasn't even that big of a group at that time. So while we were waiting and I was so nervous, I prayed desperately to God. And I said, how can I preach the gospel? How can I do your work? God, if I'm so nervous, please teach me how to deal with this. And this was the first time ever that I heard a voice, an answer in my heart. And the voice clearly said, focus on passion, not perfection. God was telling me I was too caught up on not making mistakes, trying to be perfect. So after hearing that advice, the answer to prayer, I tried to relax and just have fun and make the skit full of energy and whimsy. And I asked the Holy Spirit to inspire me and let me be open to improvisation. The result was great. Everything went well, and my stress level went way down. This was the first of many lessons the Trinity taught me about public speaking. Others came while I was preaching the Sunday message or teaching the 30 lessons, or later when I was teaching a high school class about public speaking. Finally, over the past couple years, I put all these realizations together in a book about public speaking, which I hope will help many people overcome their stage anxiety, their nervousness, and most importantly, become great communicators for God. So in my book, I actually wrote the dedication to the Holy Trinity because I could not have written this book without the Trinity's inspiration and guidance. Thank you so much. The third instance of grace happened just recently. In the morning message, Sunsem talked about there are automatic machines, like how the weather just changes naturally according to the seasons. Something seasonal happened to our family this week for the second year in a row. It started last year. We have this tiny little farmhouse near Warmingdong. And last spring, while we were weeding and cleaning up the area, my son Daniel got attacked and stung by a hornet. And when we looked, we found they were building a nest in a pile of rocks. Scary and dangerous. And it turns out just this last Monday, a close friend from the USA came over to our house to do a batch of laundry. And while we were loading the machine, we noticed a few big hornets, these were big ones, buzzing around us. And since it was more than just one, I wondered, is there a nest somewhere nearby? Investigation showed that under the tarp in the woodpile, these large hornets were building a new nest. So I dealt with them, and I destroyed the nest. And I gotta say, this timing really was God's blessing, because there were only about 20 hornets. But when I took out the nest and opened it up, there was at least 50 larvae in there. It could have become really dangerous within just a couple weeks, having that many there. So thanks to God for revealing it early. I also want to thank Sunsonim for teaching me how to deal with the hornets. Because in a previous message he said, you have to approach bees and hornets in the winter when they hibernate. Turns out that hornets, and snakes too, yes, I had to deal with them also, they are quite susceptible to cold water. What I was able to do was I sprayed the hornets with icy mountain water from our well, which makes them land and be docile, so I could remove them safely. Since the hornets built a nest 2 years in a row on our small piece of farmland, now you can be sure that every spring I'm going to diligently watch for their presence to make sure I keep everyone safe. And in the same way, we should notice patterns about how Satan invades and attacks those of us in Providence. Then we can detect and defeat those attacks early before they cause serious damage. In conclusion, I chose these 3 stories because Sunsonim always says you should remember the grace of the past, but also be really aware of the grace that's happening right now. And I hope this testimony helps you realize how the Trinity has blessed you and is continuing to give you grace this very moment. Let's conclude with a prayer. Holy Trinity, you have blessed us all beyond our wildest dreams. Thanks for your love, your protection, and the amazing plans for our futures. The way you take care of us and reveal your grace moves us so incredibly deeply. We are the most fortunate people on earth. Please help us remember the value of each day and use it to fulfill your heavenly will. We love you, and we can't wait to see how your plans unfold in our lives. With the deepest thanks, we pray in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ. Amen. Everyone, thanks so much for listening. Take care and enjoy your week running with the Lord.
And thank you so much, Pastor Baker, for another wonderful episode of Sermons in the Sky. I hope you guys received a lot of grace and inspiration. And, we're really, really supporting Pastor Baker, especially, that he's going to have a new book coming out too. But I hope that you guys have enjoyed it. I hope that you guys have an amazing and awesome time. And enjoy your Thursday. And we'll see you guys again tomorrow, which is an awesome day because it's Friday and it's the weekend. But enjoy your day, and we'll see you guys again tomorrow on the Morning Star Drive on 117.8.
It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly, so let's realign. Just listen and fill your mind.